Hi guys, so this is our screencast for the week of February 26, 2012. We'll be talking about verbal entailments, so what verbs require of their arguments and what they generally contribute to the utterances that they're in. So we can use some two-way distinctions to do this. Static events are going to be those that hold their state and undergo no change, whereas dynamic events are going to be those where something is happening or changing. A durative event will take time and sometimes can be something like a process or activity, whereas a punctual event will be instantaneous. It happens in a moment and then is no longer happening. Finally, a resultative event is one where there is a result state entailed, and a non-resultative event is one where no result state is entailed. So by combining these verbal binary features, we can classify various event types as shown in this table, and then hopefully gain some insight into what it is that these verbs have in common with one another and how they differ. So states here are static. They hold a steady, state, so no change is occurring. So if we look at our examples, we might say, John likes mac and cheese, where this event is a state of his liking of something. It stays a state of liking and doesn't necessarily end in any end state for John. So this means that it's durative in the sense that it can be considered a held state over time, and it's non-resultative in that there is no end goal or result state that's entailed. So other examples like this are see, know, want, understand, and believe. Activities, in contrast, are dynamic. Something happens or changes, and they're also durative. So they're processes, but they're not resultative. So when John runs, he doesn't necessarily have to be running until a certain point in order to have fulfilled the requirements of running. So if someone plays the piano, even though they might not finish the piece that they started on, there's no question that they've also fulfilled the core meaning of this event. Achievements are dynamic as well. Something's happening. They're also punctual. This is an instantaneous change from one thing to another. So, for instance, taking one of these examples, if my radiator cracks, that means the moment between being whole and being cracked is that which makes this the core of the event. It's also got a result. It has a crack in it. Accomplishments are also dynamic. Things like building, reading, dismantling, finding, and solving. But one of these, this type of event is actually an interesting combination of an activity and an achievement. These are durative processes, but they also need a result state. So when building a house, the event of building is not complete until the house is finished. Similarly, someone might solve a math problem and have this be an accomplishment. It's a process of going through the necessary steps and then coming out with the end result. Solve actually has had some dispute about it, so you might want to think about whether or not you have that as an accomplishment, or perhaps it's just an achievement. In any case, this accomplishment, as we can see, is durative, like activities, but resultative, like achievements, and still dynamic. So since we see this relationship between an activity and an accomplishment, we might easily be able to see one of those things that we did in class, which is coercion, where you have a relationship between two sub-event types, and we both have the derivative aspect of the process as the result of an achievement or in an accomplishment. But since achievements are punctual and crucially do not involve a time-taking process, we know that accomplishments are going to be able to be made out of activities and achievements. So John ran, we saw in class, is a process or activity. But John ran home, or John ran a mile, or John ran into the zoo is going to be forcing a result at the end of the activity, which means that this is going to be an accomplishment. It's now derivative and resultative instead of being non-resultative. We can do the same thing perhaps with sweep. So if Susie swept the floor, I consider this to be an activity. And if Susie swept the floor, clean, then we have an activity with a result. So now we have an accomplishment.